We start the stretching with the hands behind. Just trying to stretch the upper sternum into the collarbones. Almost like you're trying to pull the collarbones out of their sockets. Just move the head, help it. And then just separating the arms and bringing them out to the side. Yeah, so what we'd like is for them to stay up with mind rather than muscle. So rather than tightening the muscle here to hold them up, there's a sense that your mind is streaming down from this point, down each arm. So it's the force of the flow that's holding them up rather than muscular tension. And then the hands up. Just look up with it. and then down. Okay, now let's rub the hands. Rubbing the knees. Feeling it in the belly. I tighten my belly to push my head forwards and my hands forwards. And alternating the hands. And then just rubbing the one knee. And then the other knee. Okay, and then the sphincter exercise or the dantian. So tightening everything and pulling everything up towards the dantian. So everything's drawing towards the dantian, and then you release it. So pulling in and then pushing out. Let's rub the hands again. And then the hands over the thymus. And turning the head either side, and imagine you're pulling like a thread from the thymus down each collarbone. And then the hands together again. And now just up and down with the hands, pulling the head right back. One more up. And just hands down to the sides. So feel the collarbones again coming out from the upper sternum. And now we'll work the shoulder blades, the scapula. So just make two fists. Imagine you're holding two cables and then pull the shoulder blades together at the back and then push your hands out, bowing forwards. So you're moving the shoulder blades. It feels like it's all coming from the shoulder blades. Shoulder blades pushing apart, chest pulling in, shoulder blades pulling together, and the chest really spreading open. Trying to get as much movement in the chest region as possible. And then just pushing the hands out, bring them round to the front, straight, and then just fold the hands into prayer. And now rowing. So reaching forwards, really bowing the back. So you're looking down and then pulling the elbows back behind you and letting yourself look up. And then back to prayer. Okay, let's rub the hands again and we'll do the eyes. But before we do the eyes, let's just keep the hands up and then place them on the sacroiliacs. And just feel the heat from the palms going into those joints. then slowly drag the hands across the back and down to the knees. And just clasp the knees, like you really stretch the fingers and then let them wrap around the knees. So let's rub the hands again, and now we'll do the eyes. And the eyes. And then hands up, pointing the fingers, hands out. And now keeping the head still, just glance down to the left fingers and then pull the eyes across and glance down into the right fingers. Try and keep the movement of the eyes even, smooth, so they're not flitting. It's difficult. You can imagine that your eyes are sort of dragging a ball of energy across your, from hand to hand, through your arms, across your back. And then the hands up again and down. And now hands up and down again, but instead of moving the head, just move the eyes. So try and keep the head relatively still. Hands go up and the eyes follow. And then the hands come down and the eyes look down on top of the fingers. and up again. And then the hands up and out again. And now snaking the hands, keeping the eyes ahead, but aware of the movement in your peripheral vision. And then the hands out. And just feel that flow, almost like something is flowing down your neck and down the arms across the shoulders. And it's that flow that's keeping the arms up. And then if you have the stick, you can put it behind the back. I've forgotten mine, so I'll just put my arms there. So we're just trying to enlarge the heart, really. Stretch the chest open. So the major malaise nowadays is what they call depression, what John called disheartenment. The feeling that the heart is shriveling and dropping. So we're just trying to reverse that. And then now you can bring the stick round and just pull and push it I'll just do my hand. I'll work with my hands. So gripping and pulling them apart and relaxing into it, relaxing the shoulders, producing that pulling apart with the mind. So it should just produce a sense of sort of just waking up and becoming more cheerful. And then push the hands together. But it's the same thing. This will tend to push the heart down, but it doesn't have to. Any pressure, you can direct it into the heart and use it to open the heart. And then pulling again. And finally pushing again. And then just separating the hands and just feeling this like a fountain here. Something comes up and spreads out down the collarbones. And just feel that point on the spine that needs to be pulled in to get this opening up like this. When you meet performers, like dancers, actors, not so much musicians, people that they have to use their voice, singers maybe, then they just have good posture generally, and they present themselves to the world in an interested, friendly way. So it's this, just somehow you've got to feel that this region is underneath so that this can just blossom upwards. And as we get older, we tend to get a little bit depressed. And so, the head gets heavy. And the people I deal with that are like that, it just feels like there's a lid on the pan. And if I can get them just to lift the lid off, then there'll be this endless stream of communication going upwards. And then we can have a meaningful interaction. As soon as you put the lid on, then this will tend to start talking to itself. It becomes a closed system. So in Tai Chi, we're trying to open up to the ground so that we can develop a root, so that we can get energy flowing in and out of that interface. But for that to happen, the top needs to open up as well. Okay, so let's just come into the butterfly for a minute or so. And then let's just spread the legs apart. So a lot of what we do just depends upon the stretch here in the groin. I think it's really important, especially at our age, that we have something in our practice that we can feel we're getting better at. And stretching is a good one, because if you just do a little bit every day, then you will get deeper into the stretches as time goes by. Then just legs straight out in front. And again, stretching down. Yin yoga. They keep the stretch on for a few minutes. Then kneeling. Then the hands up and down into the fetus. And then just bring the hands down and hold the feet with them. Let the head rest on the floor. Back up, separating the feet a little so that you can sit down between them. And then let's try just a bit lying back and cycling. So you can feel it as cycling or just reaching up with the foot and like picking cherries. So first, let's just pull the knees up. So the sacrum has come off the ground. And then you just sort of breathe and gradually the sacrum lowers down. And now just cycling or picking. Feel the reach, the real extension of the foot to reach as far out as you can. Pulling the knees up again. And then up. A minute in the sumo squat. And then trying to get up. So riding horse, the legs swelling apart. So just imagine you're on a horse and it's a wide, fat horse, and it's squeezing your thighs open. So it has to relax and spread across the sacrum into the backs of the hips. And then that flows down the outside of the edge of the legs, heels, and then around into the little toe, through the toes into the big toe that is pushing down. So when we did the exercise, pulling the shoulder blades together, you can feel how mobile the shoulder blades are. So we'd like a similar, albeit much less, in the hips. And then let's just come off the heels, but just not too dramatic. Just lift the heels up so you're on the front of the foot. We just want to feel the real difference between the front of the foot, which is springy and more for spirit, and the back of the foot, which earths and is more for rooting. So here I'm just in the spring, I'm in the front of the foot, and everything's a little bit unstable. And I've lost the root. So there's a sense that something inside is accumulating, building up, and eventually will just explode and I'll fall forwards. And then heels down. And suddenly I'm earthed. And it's like time has changed. I've gone into like slow, long time. So this is more like a tree. Imagine the time scale of a tree. You know, the Ents in Lord of the Rings, they speak slowly. All their movements are so slow as to be almost unnoticeable. and the feeling that it's on the verge of melting. So every part of your body, even the solid parts, the most solid parts, the bones, the teeth, still a sense of flow within them. And then let's just come off the heels again and just feel it, how it vibrates at a higher frequency. It almost sings, it's so quick. Heels down again. As you put the heel down, you really want to feel the ground sucking the energy out of you. So all of that fizzy energy that's built up with the heels off the ground gets drained straight down, just leaving the long frequencies. And now let's just move from leg to leg. A sense of swelling into the scoop, which pulls me into the leg. So my knee moves out, my heel comes up, but particularly this joint opens. So the hip joint opens because that's the hole that sucks. The equivalent of this point here, the shoulder. So I need to be strong enough in this leg to keep my weight here as the joints of this leg open up so that it can swell into the scoop. So it's quite difficult, this. The legs have to be really quite strong. They say in bodybuilding, you're not strong until you can squat twice your body weight. So it's like each leg has to be able to squat your weight on its own. And then just into riding horse again. So sinking. So remember, sinking is also a swelling. So sinking isn't a shortening, it's a lengthening, but a lengthening into roundness. And now let's try the two circles. So it's really the same exercise, but for the arms. I'm sort of reaching out and around, and then I draw it in. Yeah, so the two aspects of yielding, extending a presence behind the other person, and then sucking them into a space inside you. So I have to be big enough to get around them, but I also have to be big enough to contain them. And they both require very different minds. The mind that reaches out is obviously very different than the mind that cuddles something in, but they're both part of the yielding process. You're reaching out in a gesture of compassion, sort of imploringly. Like the arms that reach towards the crying child. Okay, and then back to riding horse. Back with the sinking down the back, buttocks melting into the hamstrings, down the legs, into the heels. Feels like my heels are getting really big, swelling. And now let's do a bit of back and forth, the bouncing. So turning to the corner and just bouncing into each leg. And just let yourself lean forwards. Just let yourself do what the process wants. So I sink and I almost fall down, but then I get sprung back by the leg. The back leg is more difficult because it's got 100% of the weight, so it's got to be that little bit stronger. I want the return, the bounce back to feel natural. I bounce back because of that springy quality in the leg. I sink and I get sprung back. I sink and something springs back. The other foot forward, so turning to the other corner. I really need to feel the hips. So my weight is coming down the spine and pushes across into this hip, and then it can get down the outside edge of the foot and the leg. And then the bounce back springs up the inside. So I sink down the outside and then something comes up the inside. I sink down the outside and something returns up the middle. Back to riding horse. And now let's try this one. Getting this alternating action in the body. So the two sides of my body are moving in opposite directions. There's up in one, there's down in the other. And I want that sort of shearing action, which is really just the figure of eight exercise, coming into each of the centers as well. Belly, heart, and head. Feel the knee breaks, but also the hip breaks here. And I'm turning with it, turning towards the knee that's coming up. So the heel is coming up, but I'm actually moving into that foot. This is what makes it tricky. And then let's let it become the jog, like a slow motion jog with the heels off the ground all the time. It's very much springing from the ball of the foot. And again, just like you're a vase of water half full and it's really sloshing from side to side. Knees and feet light and lively, but the sacrum heavy, sort of dangling down behind you. That's what it feels like. Bring it back to the riding horse. And now let's just try the two circles again. And just so what we want to do is really feel the point where I change direction with my turn. So I'm turning to my left here to reach forwards with the right hand. And then I have to stop turning to the left so that I can then start turning to the right. Just feel that point. It's like everything slows down slowly and then it starts moving again. So like time is really stretched at that point of changing direction. And then that is really the figure of eight. So if you reach out, Now, instead of just turning the hand over, just make the bottom loop of the figure of eight. The figure of eight, really, it's just looking at what happens when you change direction. There's another circle there. You've got the circle that envelops the other person at the top, but you've got another circle here which is getting right down under the ground. And for the top circle to break into the bottom circle, something has to happen here. I really have to turn so that I can get my palm facing up so that I can then trace the bottom circle with the back of my hand. So the top circle I trace with my palm, and then I pass through the middle, and then the bottom circle, it's the back of my hand that's slipping around it. So in a sense, the figure of eight is sort of more abstract. It doesn't so obviously include the other person. But if I think of the top circle as including them, and the bottom part of the circle including me and my ground, then it sort of makes a bit more sense. And then a bit with the other one. And then just figure of eighting. So this is really now it's just you. So you're thinking the top one going over your head and the bottom one getting underneath the foot. Really feeling the point in the middle where the hands almost touch. Think of yourself tracing the same figure of eight with both hands, at the top with one hand and the bottom with the other. Back to riding horse. Problem really with the figure of eight exercise is that it comes from the arms. You know, I see the trace and I'm tracing this thing with my arms and my hands. And we know that we want everything to come from the legs and the feet and the ground. So now let's try turning, just doing the first warm-up exercise really, but feeling it is the action of the two legs. So rather than me just turning like this from here, from my hips or my waist, I'm pulling with one foot and pushing with the other. And that's producing a turn. So it's the alternating action of the two legs that makes me turn. And the feet really feel like they're working the ground. The toes are active. Imagine if you're doing this on wet sand at the beach, you'd be digging holes for yourself with each foot, really messing up the surface. It becomes the figure of eight again, but now it's this is happening because of something happening in the legs rather than it's happening in my arms and never getting down to the legs. So if it's in the lower body, then it's much more likely to get into the centers, which is where we want it, especially the heart. I'm turning, but it's my legs producing the turning, not my hips. And just feel it really getting into the chest. That's where we'd like it. So feeling, getting into feeling. That's the aspect of mind we want to cultivate. Not thinking, feeling. And then just let it be the first warm-up exercise. So just relax the upper body, but it's still in my legs. And that's still projecting action, especially into the heart. It's just gentle. So a feeling is really just like a whoosh of energy that's gone through the heart. And that's what we're doing here, just pumping to get movement in this chest region. Back into riding horse, sinking down the back. And then let's pick the foot up. Yeah, so I want to sink down the outside edge and just draw this and rest it on the so I'm sinking. What we like is that when we put the foot on the ground, there's just an instant cut into the ground and the outside edge and a rush up the inside of the leg. So I'm just settling into the posture. Keeping my mind on it, obviously, but just really relaxing across here so that I can keep that flow streaming. And then something will come up. Yeah, so when you practice something, and it's difficult because often, you can't feel it, but this is what's amazing about human beings. They can have an idea or a concept or an instruction and follow that. And then slowly it all opens out. Yeah, so, all the time we're two people. There's me that's sinking, that's trying to feel this flow down. But there's obviously another me that's holding me up, that's going in the opposite direction. Otherwise, I would be moving down. And I want both of those me's to equilibrate. So I have to separate them out and feel their distinctness, and then just let them balance each other. And what makes it difficult is it's almost like they're both in like different realms or different dimensions. So it's difficult to have a mind that can embrace them both. I'm flowing down here, but something is also coming up. And then just draw the knee up slightly higher than it really wants to come, to try and just get the sacrum sinking down into the supporting leg a little bit more. You can feel it. The more I pull the knee up, the more my sacrum digs down this leg. And that's difficult. It's difficult to allow it, the last thing the mind and the body wants. That's another thing. A lot of what we practice is not nice. It's not pleasant. And so there has to be some part, like an ethical aspect that can willingly suffer for the sake of some future harmony. And that's what it's all about, really. You just find out, look for the things you're not actually very good at, the things you've avoided all your life, and just practice them and get them up to speed so that you can make a better, more complete whole. Can I sit down into this leg? And now just trying to step. Yes, just looking at the stepping. And it's the stepping out that's really the difficult thing in Tai Chi. So I extend my foot out. I need to sink more into this leg, but also more into its outside edge. So as my foot goes out, I need to be moving in the opposite direction to maintain the balance. And then what is it that makes the foot hit the ground? All the time we're just trying to get away from the controlling mind. So my foot goes out, and what actually makes it hit the ground is a letting go. And it's particularly here, something in my hip has to let go. So the foot can just go down on the ground. And then that's like a stretch. And instantly the foot hits the ground, it's drawing me into it. So I send the foot out, I'm moving in this direction, and then there's a point here where I reach a little bit further. It's like reaching for the apple. If it's just a little bit too high, you know that you can just, you can almost will the arm to come out of its socket here and get that inch further. But then as soon as you've got it, it naturally springs back. And that's the feeling of the leg stepping. Send the foot out, and now it's not, I have to go that extra inch. So, and then the foot going down naturally draws me into it. This is what John was so good at. I remember him telling me about it and, saying it was so difficult. So when John stepped, it always looked like he was falling into the foot a little bit, but he wasn't. He was just doing this. So when I let go of the leg and it hits the ground, it almost looks like it's fallen down, but it hasn't. I'm still here. I've just let go in the joint, and that's drawn me into it. So it's very springy and dynamic and lively. So here, and then something in me has to, I let go here in the groin. And that gets the foot on the ground and starts me moving into it. So it's not my mind making a decision to do something, it's simply my mind letting go. So it's that point of breaking. Imagine the child, you reach your arms out. Okay, so that's one thing, just reaching your arms out and around. But then for it to be real, something has to break. The heart has to break. It's like there has to be a rupture. In order for it to be real. And at that point, you're just really vulnerable. And that's how you know it's right. So something in me just releases. It's like the floodgates that break and then the tears start rolling. And this is just so difficult. It's difficult on the leg, but it's just difficult emotionally to make it real. All of these things, it's so easy to turn them into techniques, mindless techniques. I want it to be so real. You know, if John was practicing this, he would be literally weeping. The tears would be rolling down his cheeks. Happened so often when I worked with him. Because he just felt it. He felt its reality. Can't do a lot of this one. Make you ill if you're not careful. Okay, so let's try the other leg. So I step out and now, ooh, and yeah, so you have to reach with the leg, but keeping your balance. So if you're reaching in this direction, you also have to reach in this direction. Otherwise, you'll fall into the foot. Yeah, you can just do the whole form like this. You know, so when you step, you just lift the foot onto the knee and then just pull it up to make sure you're down and then extend the foot out. And at that point of it hitting the ground, way, spirit enters the system. So let's finish. It's a long time since I've found something that kills the legs quite like that. It takes a while to recover from as well. It takes more than a day. And now let's bring the feet up. This, you know, this is there all the time. And it's just producing these movements. Yeah, a bit like a prostitute. You know, the way they sort of give you the eye, but at the same time they're wiggling their bum. there's movement in every part. So being seductive is a really interesting concept. Seducing the world simply by passing through it. Charisma. Interesting word. So charisma, charm, character, it all comes from the Greek charis, which means grace. And grace originally meant favor. So the grace of God is just the favor of God. You're in God's favor, and therefore you receive grace. So this sense of there being this constant exchange of favor between you and the world